I'm wondering about the stigma that is in the Black community. I do hear us talking about mental health more now, particularly with men. But when it comes to the Black male athletes and seeking help or discussing, how do you feel like the stigma plays a role? And then how do we try to get around that?
But I think when we talk about stigma in the Black community, one of the injustices that has happened is us not talking about why that stigma exists in the first place. And there's a reason for it. And we end up stigmatizing the community for having the stigma and less critical nature of the profession for creating the environment that caused that stigma to have to exist in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? So are we talking about Benjamin Rush, the father of psychiatry, who came up with the disease of negritude, the disease of being Black? And he's the father of psychiatry based on the APA, American Psychiatry Association emblem. Have we talked about Samuel Cartwright and drapetomania and the diagnosing of diseases for enslaved Africans who ran away, slaves who are lazy and unmotivated because they're not right? We have always put labels on our community in a way that has worked to conform us into a system that was not working for us. So stigma had a purpose. Stigma was necessary. Detroit riots and lobotomies in the 1960s, right? Schizophrenia in the 1900s becoming early 1900s being mainly white women housewives, but by the time we hit civil rights in the 1960s, it's Black men being diagnosed with schizophrenia and placed in institutions, right? It goes from a whimsical disease to a violent disease. Check out Protest Disease if you have not read it. Great book. But we see how these diagnoses have worked to it. So there is a reason for the stigma. And I think in unpacking our stigma now, it's important to name these historical factors that play a part of why the stigma exists in the first place. And to some degree, we haven't moved completely away from it. We see the over expulsions, the over exclusionary practices of Black kids in school under the same guidelines that we put the same labels on many of the enslaved Africans when they didn't show up in the same way that the system wanted them to show up in, right? We have to name these things in order to understand why, because what happens is we just kind of become critical and harsh of ourselves for having these stigmas. And it's like, whoa, now, there's a reason.